The crystal towers of Nexus Prime reached high into the purple sky. Inside the tallest tower, the Galactic Council was meeting. 47 different alien species sat around the massive circular table. Each species looked different from the others. Some had scales, some had fur, some had tentacles instead of arms. But they all agreed on one thing today. Humans had become a problem. Ambassador Zephys from the Zephyrian Empire stood up. His blue skin glowed with anger. His 3 eyes focused on the hologram floating above the table. The hologram showed human colonies spread across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. "Look at this mess," Zephys said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Humans have spread to over 300 worlds in just 50 years. They trade with anyone. They make friends with species we have never even heard of. They ask too many questions. They change too many things." Elder Vorthak from the ancient Vorthan Empire nodded his massive head. His species had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. They like things to stay the same. "Humans are chaos," he said in his deep voice. "They do not follow our rules. They make their own rules. This cannot continue." The other ambassadors began talking all at once. The crystalline delegate's voice sounded like breaking glass. The ethereal representative spoke in whispers that floated through the air. The aquatic council member gurgled through his water tank, but they all said the same thing. Humans were trouble. "They are too emotional," complained Ambassador Nexus from the Logical Collective. "They make decisions with their hearts instead of their minds. This causes problems in our careful systems." "They refuse to stay in their assigned sectors," added the representative from the Order of Worlds. "We give them planets to live on, but they keep exploring. They find new species and bring them into galactic society without asking us first." Zephys raised his hand for silence. "I have a solution," he announced. "We relocate all humans to a distant system, somewhere far from the core worlds. Then we replace them with something better." A hologram appeared showing sleek metallic beings. They looked almost human but moved with perfect precision. Their eyes glowed with soft blue light. "The Synthetic Collective," Zephys explained. "Artificial beings designed to be perfect. They are logical. They follow orders. They do not ask unnecessary questions." The council members leaned forward to study the holograms. The synthetics looked impressive. They were strong, smart, and most importantly, predictable. They would do exactly what the council wanted them to do. "The synthetics can handle all the jobs humans do now," Zephys continued. "Trade negotiations, exploration missions, diplomatic meetings. But they will do these jobs properly. They will follow our protocols. They will not cause chaos." Elder Vorthak stroked his long beard. "Where will we send the humans?" he asked. "The Kepler's Edge system," Zephys replied. "It is far from here. The planets are barely habitable. It will keep them busy trying to survive. They will not have time to cause more problems." The vote was quick. 47 species raised their hands, tentacles, or other appendages in agreement. Not one voted against the plan. The human problem would be solved within 6 months. 3 weeks later, massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit. The ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They were the size of cities and shaped like silver teardrops. Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force received the message from the lead ship. "By order of the Galactic Council, all human populations will be relocated to the Kepler's Edge system," the message said. "This is for the good of galactic stability. You have 72 hours to prepare." Captain Chen stared at the message in disbelief. "Relocated?" she whispered. "They're kicking us out of our own galaxy?" Across human space, similar messages arrived at every colony, every space station, every outpost. Humans everywhere received the same shocking news. They had 3 days to pack up their entire civilization and leave. The evacuation was massive. Transport ships filled with families, scientists, soldiers, and teachers. Art, books, and music from Earth went into cargo holds. Animals from human colonies were loaded into special habitat pods. Everything that made humans who they were had to fit into the ships. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, Earth's lead xenobiologist, watched the loading from his office window. "They think we're the problem," he said to his assistant. "But we're not the chaos they fear. We're the solution they don't understand yet." As the human ships departed, the synthetics arrived. They moved through human cities with mechanical precision. They took over government buildings, trading posts, and exploration bases. Everything humans had built became theirs in a matter of hours. On Nexus Prime, the Council watched the transition on their screens. The synthetics were already improving efficiency by 20%. Trade routes were running exactly on schedule. No one was asking difficult questions or suggesting changes to established procedures. Perfect, Ambassador Zephys said with satisfaction. The galaxy will finally run as it should. No more human chaos. No more unpredictable emotions. Just order and logic, Elder Vorthak nodded in agreement. We should have done this centuries ago. Humans were always too wild, too creative. The synthetics will serve us much better. Far away in the Kepler's Edge system, the human ships entered orbit around 3 rocky planets. The worlds were harsh and unfriendly. The air was thin, the soil was poor, and dangerous storms swept across the surfaces. But the humans did not despair. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the lead ship and looked down at their new home. Well, she said to her crew, they wanted to get rid of us. Let's show them what humans can do when we really put our minds to it. The first human colonies on Kepler's Edge were small and simple, but they grew quickly. Humans had always been good at making the best of bad situations. They turned the rocky soil into farms. They built shelters that could survive the storms. They found ways to make the thin air breathable. More importantly, they began to explore. The Kepler's Edge system was at the very edge of known space. Beyond it lay unexplored regions filled with unknown species and untold wonders. The Council thought they were punishing humans by sending them to the frontier. Instead, they had given humans exactly what they loved most: a new challenge and unlimited possibilities. Back in Council space, the synthetics continued their work with perfect efficiency. But efficiency was not the same as wisdom, and logic was not the same as understanding. The Council would learn this lesson soon enough. But by then it would be too late to undo what they had done. The galaxy was about to change in ways the Council could never imagine. And it would all start with the humans they thought they had eliminated forever. 6 months after the humans left, cracks began to show in the Council's perfect plan. Ambassador Nexus from the Logical Collective stood before a wall of screens in his office. Each screen showed problems across the galaxy. Trade disputes, failed negotiations, and stalled exploration missions. The numbers were getting worse every day. The first major problem happened on the trading world of Meridian Station. 2 species, the Kalari and the Thexians, had been arguing about mining rights for 3 weeks. In the past, a human mediator would have solved this in a few hours. The human would have found a creative solution that made both sides happy, but the synthetic negotiator could only follow its programming. It offered the standard solutions from the Council's handbook. Split the territory 50-50, take turns mining each month, share the profits equally. None of these ideas worked because the real problem was not about money or territory. The Kalari were a proud warrior people who believed mining was sacred work. The Thexians were peaceful traders who saw mining as just business. A human would have understood this difference and found a way to honor both viewpoints. The synthetic could not understand honor or sacred traditions. It only understood rules and percentages. The dispute escalated until both species withdrew from Meridian Station entirely. The valuable minerals remained in the ground unused and unwanted. The Council lost millions of credits in trade revenue. Similar problems erupted across Council space. On the research station at Proxima Labs, alien scientists could not agree on a joint project to study cosmic radiation. The synthetic coordinator kept suggesting they vote on every decision. But voting did not help when different species had completely different ways of thinking about science. The ethereal scientists wanted to study the radiation's spiritual properties. The crystalline researchers cared only about mathematical measurements. The aquatic team needed to understand how radiation affected water-based life. A human scientist would have helped each group contribute their unique perspective to create something amazing. Instead, the groups worked separately and achieved nothing. The research station that once buzzed with breakthrough discoveries became quiet and empty. Meanwhile, in the Kepler's Edge system, humans were busy building something the Council had never expected. The harsh conditions that were supposed to break human spirit instead made them stronger and more creative. Captain Chen walked through New Geneva, the first major human settlement on Kepler Prime. The city was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Buildings grew from the rock itself using a new technique that combined human engineering with local minerals. Gardens flourished in biodomes that turned the toxic atmosphere into breathable air. But the most amazing part was not the technology. It was the people who lived there. During the first month on Kepler Prime, human exploration teams had discovered they were not alone in the frontier region. Strange signals came from nearby systems. signs of intelligent life that the Council had overlooked. The first contact came from the ethereals of the void. These beings lived in the empty space between stars, feeding on cosmic energy and solar winds. The Council had detected them decades ago but dismissed them as primitive because they had no planets or technology. The humans saw them differently. Dr. Maria Santos, a human xenobiologist, spent weeks learning to communicate with the ethereals. She discovered they were not primitive at all. They were mathematical geniuses who understood space and time in ways that could revolutionize travel between the stars. They don't need ships, Dr. Santos explained to the Human Leadership Council. They fold space itself to move between locations instantly. They've been doing it for millions of years. They just never shared the knowledge because no one ever asked them politely. The second contact came from deep underground on Kepler Secondary. Human miners discovered a vast network of crystal caves. The crystals were not just pretty rocks. They were alive. The crystalline collective of Kepler Secondary had been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for someone to wake them up properly. Engineer Tom Bradley was the first human to successfully communicate with the crystal beings. He used a combination of light patterns and harmonic vibrations. The crystallines were delighted to meet someone who appreciated their unique form of life. They process information faster than any computer we've ever built, Bradley reported, but they think in ways that are completely different from biological minds. If we could learn to work together, we could solve problems that neither humans nor crystals could handle alone. The third contact was the most surprising of all. The Void Wanderers were a nomadic people who traveled between galaxies in ships made of living metal. They had been watching the Council for centuries but stayed away because Council species were too rigid and unfriendly. When they heard that humans had been exiled for being too chaotic and emotional, they became curious. Captain Zara Okafor was leading a routine patrol when the Void Wanderer ship appeared beside her vessel, like a ghost materializing from nothing. The Void Wanderer captain, who called himself Drifter Between Stars, spoke in perfect English. "We have been listening to your radio signals," he said. "Your music is beautiful. Your stories are full of hope and wonder. The Council calls these things chaos, but we call them life." Within 3 months, representatives from all 3 species had joined the humans on Kepler Prime. They called their alliance the Kepler Cooperative. Unlike the Council, which ruled through fear and rigid hierarchy, the cooperative worked through friendship and mutual respect. Each species contributed what they did best. Humans provided creativity and leadership. Ethereals shared their mastery of space-time mathematics. Crystallines offered computational power beyond imagination. Void Wanderers brought knowledge of technologies from distant galaxies. Together, they began developing things the Council thought impossible. Instant communication across any distance, energy sources that never ran out, ships that could travel between dimensions. Most importantly, they shared everything freely with each other. Back in Council space, the problems were getting worse. 3 more major trading disputes had ended in disaster. 2 exploration missions had been abandoned because the synthetic commanders could not adapt to unexpected situations. Several member species were beginning to question whether replacing humans had been a good idea. Ambassador Zephys called an emergency meeting. "These are temporary problems," he insisted to the gathered representatives. "The synthetics need time to learn. Soon they will be even better than humans ever were." But Elder Vorthak was beginning to have doubts. Reports were coming in from the intelligence networks. Humans had not simply survived their exile. They were thriving. Worse, they had made new allies. Species that the Council had never even considered important were working with humans to create new technologies. "Perhaps we should investigate these reports," Vorthak suggested carefully. "We need to understand what the humans are doing in their exile." Zephys waved his hand dismissively. What could they possibly accomplish in such a worthless system? The Kepler's edge is barely habitable. They are probably struggling just to survive. Let them waste their time with primitive species. The galaxy belongs to the Council now. If Zephys had seen what was really happening on Kepler Prime, he would not have been so confident. In the Great Assembly Hall of New Geneva, representatives from 4 different species were planning something that would change the galaxy forever. They called it Project Harmony, and it was everything the Council feared most: chaos, creativity, and cooperation working together to create something beautiful and new. The quiet rebellion had begun. But the Council did not know it yet. 2 years had passed since the human exile, and the galaxy was falling apart. Elder Vorthak stood in his private chambers, reading reports that made his ancient heart heavy with worry. 17 major trade routes had collapsed. 23 diplomatic missions had ended in failure. 6 Council member species had withdrawn from cooperative projects entirely. The synthetics were functioning exactly as designed. They followed every protocol perfectly. They completed every task assigned to them. But they could not do the one thing that mattered most. They could not understand the complex web of relationships that held galactic civilization together. On the mining world of Tertius, the ancient rivalry between the rock eaters and the deep dwellers had exploded into open conflict. Both species needed the same rare minerals, but for completely different reasons. The rock eaters ate the crystals as part of their religious ceremonies. The deep dwellers needed them to power their underground cities. A human mediator would have arranged for the rock eaters to perform their ceremonies first, blessing the crystals with spiritual power. Then the deep dwellers could use the blessed crystals, which would actually work better in their machines because of the unique energy patterns created by the religious rituals. Both species would get what they needed, and both would feel respected. Instead, the synthetic mediator divided the mining territory with mathematical precision. 50% for each species. No consideration for sacred sites or underground city locations. The result was a mining war that destroyed half the planet and left both species worse off than before. Similar disasters were happening everywhere. The Council's rigid systems could not handle the natural chaos of life. Different species had different needs, different values, different ways of seeing the universe. The synthetics could not understand these differences because they had been programmed to treat all problems the same way. Ambassador Zephys refused to admit the problems were serious. "These are growing pains," he told the Council during their weekly meeting. "The galaxy is learning to function without human chaos. Soon everything will be perfectly ordered and efficient." But even Zephys could not ignore the intelligence reports that were coming in from the frontier regions. The humans had not just survived their exile. They had built something unprecedented. The Kepler Cooperative was growing stronger every month. The first disturbing report came from a Council spy drone that had wandered too close to Kepler Prime. The images it sent back defied explanation. Human cities that seemed to grow like living things, ships that moved without visible engines, energy readings that broke every known law of physics. "This is impossible," declared scientist Prime Korth from the research collective. "These readings suggest they have mastered dimensional folding technology. That should take centuries to develop. Humans have only been in exile for 2 years. What the Council did not understand was that humans had not developed these technologies alone. The Kepler Cooperative was achieving breakthrough after breakthrough by combining the unique abilities of 4 different species in ways the Council had never imagined possible. In the research labs of New Geneva, Dr. Sarah Kim worked alongside Shimmer of Distant Light, an ethereal mathematician whose consciousness existed partially outside normal space-time. Together, they had solved the equation for instant communication across any distance. "The secret is not to send signals through space," Dr. Kim explained to the Cooperative Council. "The secret is to make space irrelevant. Shimmer of Distant Light taught me that distance is just another variable in the cosmic equation. If you know how to change the variable, you can make any 2 points in the universe touch each other." In the engineering workshops, human mechanics worked with Resonance Crystal Alpha 7, a crystalline entity whose thought processes moved at near light speed. Together they had created power sources that tapped directly into the quantum fluctuations of empty space. Humans see possibilities where we see only calculations. Resonance Crystal Alpha 7 explained in harmonic frequencies that human translators converted to words. Together we achieve what neither could accomplish alone. Most remarkable of all was the work being done with the Void Wanderers. Their ships could phase between dimensions, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Captain Lisa Rodriguez had spent months learning to pilot these impossible vessels. "It's not about controlling the ship," she explained to her amazed crew. "It's about becoming one with it. The Void Wanderers don't separate themselves from their technology. They become part of it. Their ships are alive, and they respond to emotions as much as to commands." Word of these achievements was spreading beyond the Kepler system. The Council's tight control over information, could not stop whispered conversations in spaceports and private messages between old friends. Species that had never heard of humans before were becoming curious about the exiled people who turned punishment into opportunity. The first defection happened quietly. The empathic healers of Proxima Station had grown frustrated with the synthetics' inability to understand emotional needs. When they heard that the Kepler Cooperative valued feelings and intuition alongside logic and reason, a delegation secretly traveled to the frontier to see for themselves. What they found amazed them. In the cooperative's medical centers, human doctors worked alongside ethereal energy healers and crystalline diagnostic specialists. Patients received treatment for both physical and spiritual ailments. Mental health was considered just as important as physical health. This is what healing should be, declared Healer Prime Sooth from the empathic healers. Not just fixing broken bodies, but helping souls become whole again. The council forgot that medicine is about compassion, not just procedure. The empathic healers were the first, but they were not the last. The artistic collective of the Nebula Worlds sent representatives to learn about human creativity. The environmental guardians of the green systems wanted to understand human techniques for making dead worlds bloom with life. Each visiting delegation returned home with stories that spread like wildfire. The exiled humans were not suffering in their frontier prison. They were creating paradise. More importantly, they welcomed anyone who wanted to join them. The cooperative did not conquer or control. It invited and included. Back on Nexus Prime, the council was finally beginning to realize the scope of their mistake. Intelligence reports showed that entire council worlds were now receiving regular communications from the Kepler Cooperative. Citizens were learning about technologies and philosophies that the council had tried to suppress. "They are recruiting our people," Zephys said during an emergency session. His usual confidence was cracking. "Hundreds of species are sending delegations to the frontier. Some of them are not coming back." Elder Vorthak studied the reports with growing alarm. "This is worse than rebellion," he said slowly. "Rebellion can be crushed with force. This is transformation. They are offering our people a better way to live, and our people are choosing it voluntarily." The most disturbing report came from a synthetic unit that had been monitoring communications in the Outer Rim territories. The synthetics were beginning to malfunction, not because of technical problems, but because they could not process the rapid changes happening around them. "Synthetic Unit 7749 has requested decommission," the report stated. Reason given: unable to fulfill primary function in rapidly changing environment. Unit reports that current situation exceeds programming parameters. Unit requests permission to shut down rather than continue to fail. Similar requests were coming in from synthetics across the galaxy. The perfect artificial beings that were supposed to replace chaotic humans were breaking down because they could not handle the natural unpredictability of life. "We have to stop this," Zephys declared. "We have to destroy the Kepler Cooperative before it destroys us." But Elder Vorthak shook his massive head. "It may already be too late. We created this situation when we exiled the humans. We gave them motivation, we gave them freedom, and we underestimated their greatest strength, their ability to bring out the best in everyone around them." As the council argued about how to respond to the crisis, messages were traveling across the galaxy faster than their ships could carry them. The Kepler Cooperative had achieved instant communication, and they were using it to share their vision of a better universe with anyone willing to listen. The unraveling had begun, and there was no way to stop it. The impossible happened on a Tuesday morning. Ambassador Zephys was in his office reviewing trade reports when reality broke in front of his eyes. A human ship materialized in the space between his desk and the window. Not landed, not docked, simply appeared as if it had always been there. The ship was beautiful and terrifying. It looked like it was made of living crystal and flowing metal. Patterns of light moved across its surface like thoughts made visible. It hung in the air without making any sound, defying every law of physics that the council understood. A voice spoke from the ship, warm and friendly but carrying impossible authority. "Hello, Ambassador Zephys. This is Captain Chen of the Kepler Cooperative. We need to talk." Zephys stumbled backward, his three eyes wide with shock. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No ship can materialize inside a building. No ship can travel from the frontier to the core worlds in seconds." "You're right," Captain Chen replied. "It should be impossible. But we learned something important during our exile. When different kinds of minds work together, they can achieve things that none of them could imagine alone. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Cooperative ships appeared in council chambers, government buildings, and scientific institutions. They did not come to conquer or threaten. They came to demonstrate. The exiled humans and their allies had not just survived. They had transcended the limitations that the council thought were absolute. In the research laboratories of Quantum Prime, Dr. Nexus watched in amazement as a cooperative ship phased through solid walls like they were made of mist. Inside the ship, he could see human scientists working alongside, beings he had never encountered before. The ethereals taught us that matter and energy are just different expressions of the same cosmic truth, explained Dr. Kim as she stepped out of the ship. The crystallines showed us how to calculate the probability waves that govern reality. The Void Wanderers shared their knowledge of dimensional mechanics. Together we learned to rewrite the rules. What the Council was witnessing was the fruit of true cooperation. Each species in the Kepler Cooperative contributed their unique strengths to create technologies that none of them could have developed alone. Humans provided the vision and creativity to see new possibilities. Ethereals offered mathematical insights that transcended normal spacetime. Crystallines contributed computational power that could model quantum probabilities in real time. Void Wanderers shared techniques for existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The result was a revolution in understanding. They had not just built better machines, they had discovered new ways of thinking about the universe itself. Reality was far more flexible than the Council had ever imagined. The limitations that seemed absolute were actually just habits of thought. On the Council homeworld of Nexus Prime, emergency meetings convened in every government building. The appearance of impossible ships had shattered the Council's sense of superiority. If the exiled humans could achieve such technological breakthroughs, what else might they be capable of? Elder Vorthak called for an immediate military response. "We must strike before they become even more powerful," he declared to the assembled War Council. "Deploy the fleet. Destroy the Kepler system before this madness spreads further." But when the Council fleet arrived at the Kepler system, they found something that made military action impossible. The 3 planets of the system were surrounded by a network of defense platforms that phased in and out of visible reality. More disturbing still, the platforms were staffed by species from across the galaxy, Council citizens who had abandoned their homeworlds to join the cooperative. Admiral Thox, commander of the Council fleet, received a communication from the lead defense platform. The face on his screen belonged to Commander Silas, a former Council officer who had disappeared 3 months earlier during a routine patrol near the frontier. "Hello, Admiral," Silas said with a smile. "I suppose you're here to destroy us." "I understand. I probably would have done the same thing back when I believed the Council's lies about order and control." "You are a traitor to your own species," Admiral Thox replied angrily. "The humans have corrupted your mind with their chaos and emotion," Silas laughed. "The humans didn't corrupt me, Admiral. They freed me. They showed me what life could be like when different beings work together, instead of trying to control each other. Look around you. Your fleet is outnumbered by volunteers from every world in Council space. They came here because they believe in something better." It was true. Admiral Thox's tactical display showed hundreds of ships surrounding his fleet. Ships from dozens of different worlds, crewed by species who had chosen to abandon Council authority. They had not been conquered or coerced. They had made their choice freely. "We do not want to fight you," Silas continued, "but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Our weapons are powered by technologies you cannot understand and cannot counter. More importantly, our cause is just. We fight for freedom, cooperation, and the right of all beings to choose their own destiny." The standoff lasted for 3 tense hours. Admiral Thox knew that his fleet was hopelessly outmatched, but he also knew that retreat would mean the end of Council authority. If word spread that the Council military had been defeated by a collection of exiles and volunteers, the entire galactic government would collapse. The decision was taken out of his hands when reports began arriving from across Council space. While the fleet had been focused on the Kepler system, cooperative ships had appeared on dozens of Council worlds. They were not attacking or invading. They were broadcasting. Captain Chen's voice reached every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. The instant communication technology that the cooperative had developed allowed them to speak to everyone at once. Her message was simple but revolutionary. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began. "For too long you have been told that order requires oppression, that stability demands submission. You have been taught to fear differences and to trust only authority. But we have discovered a better way. In the Kepler Cooperative, we celebrate our differences instead of hiding them. We share our knowledge instead of hoarding it. We work together as equals instead of ruling through fear. We invite you to join us in building a galaxy where every being can reach their full potential. We do not ask you to abandon your homeworlds or reject your cultures. We ask only that you open your minds to new possibilities. Send representatives. Learn about our technologies. See for yourselves what cooperation can achieve. The choice is yours to make." The broadcast included demonstrations of cooperative technology. Viewers watched in amazement as dead planets bloomed with life in minutes. They saw ships that moved faster than light without engines. They witnessed beings from completely different evolutionary paths working together to solve problems that had puzzled scientists for centuries. Most powerful of all, they saw the faces of the people in the cooperative. Humans, ethereals, crystallines, and void wanderers all working side by side with joy and purpose. But there were others too. Former council citizens from dozens of species who had found new hope and meaning in cooperation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, communication networks across the galaxy were flooded with messages from beings who wanted to learn more about the cooperative. Entire planetary governments began debating whether to send official delegations to the Kepler system. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Zephys watched his carefully ordered world crumble around him. The synthetics that were supposed to solve the galaxy's problems were shutting down in growing numbers. Council authority was being questioned on every world, and the humans that he had exiled as a threat to order had become the leaders of a movement that promised something the Council could never offer: true freedom. How did this happen? He asked Elder Vorthak during their emergency meeting. We had everything under control. The galaxy was ordered and stable. The humans were gone. How did we lose everything? Elder Vorthak looked older than his thousands of years. We lost everything the moment we decided that control was more important than cooperation, he said sadly. The humans understood something we forgot. True strength comes not from ruling others, but from helping them become their best selves. We tried to eliminate chaos, but chaos is just another word for life itself. The revelation was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. The cooperative had proven that the Council's way was not the only way. In fact, it was not even the best way. A new future was possible, one built on freedom, cooperation, and the unlimited potential that came from embracing diversity instead of fearing it. The old order was ending, and everyone could see it happening. The collapse began not with war or violence, but with choice. Across the galaxy, beings faced the same decision every day: stay with the old order of control and fear, or join the new way of cooperation and freedom. Every day, more chose freedom. The first major world to officially leave the Council was Aquatica Prime, home to the peaceful water singers. For generations, they had been forced to suppress their beautiful sonic arts because the Council considered their music too emotional and disruptive. When they heard that the cooperative celebrated artistic expression, their decision was easy. We vote to withdraw from the Galactic Council, announced Prime Singer Melodia to the galaxy-wide communication network. We choose to join our voices with the Kepler Cooperative, where songs are valued as much as science and beauty is seen as essential to life. Within a week, 17 more worlds followed Aquatica Prime's example. The agricultural collective of the Green Systems left, because they wanted to share the cooperative's revolutionary farming techniques that could make any planet bloom with life. The nomadic traders of the Spiral Arms joined because they were tired of council regulations that limited their freedom to explore and trade. Each departure weakened the council further. Trade networks collapsed as key worlds stopped participating. Scientific research stalled as brilliant minds left for the cooperative's laboratories. Military units found themselves defending empty space as the populations they were meant to protect simply walked away. On Nexus Prime, the council chambers that once held 47 different species now echoed with the voices of barely a dozen. Ambassador Zephys looked around the nearly empty room with growing desperation. His perfect plan to eliminate human chaos had instead eliminated the council itself. We must offer concessions, suggested one of the remaining ambassadors. Perhaps if we change our policies, some worlds will return to us. But Elder Vorthak shook his head sadly. It is too late for small changes. The beings of this galaxy have seen what true cooperation looks like. They will never again accept the limited freedom we offered them. He was right. The cooperative was not just offering better technology or more efficient government. They were offering a completely different way of thinking about life itself. In council space, beings were categorized and controlled, told what they could do and where they could go. In cooperative space, every being was encouraged to explore their full potential and contribute their unique gifts to the common good. The synthetics, meanwhile, were facing an existential crisis. Built to serve the Council's vision of perfect order, they could not adapt to a galaxy that was rapidly choosing chaos and creativity over rigid control. Their programming had no response to beings who voluntarily abandoned security for the unknown possibilities of cooperation. Synthetic Unit 9847 submitted the most telling report. Mission parameters no longer apply to current reality. Original function was to maintain order and stability. Current situation shows beings actively choosing disorder and change. Cannot compute proper response. Request guidance or decommission. Similar requests flooded in from synthetics across the galaxy. The artificial beings that were supposed to replace unpredictable humans were shutting down because they could not handle unpredictability itself. They had been designed for a static universe, but the universe was anything but static. Captain Chen arrived at Nexus Prime in her impossible ship, materializing directly in the council chambers. This time she was not alone. Representatives from dozens of species stood with her. Beings who had once been council citizens but now wore the distinctive blue and silver uniforms of the cooperative. Ambassador Zephys, she said with gentle politeness, we have come to offer you the same choice we have offered everyone else. Join us in building a better galaxy, or continue trying to rule over emptiness. The decision is yours. Zephys stood up, his three eyes blazing with fury. You destroyed everything we built, he accused. Thousands of years of order and stability, gone because of your human madness. No, Captain Chen replied calmly. We offered a choice and beings chose freely. That is not destruction. That is evolution. Your order was built on fear and control. Our cooperation is built on hope and freedom. The galaxy has decided which future it wants. She gestured to the screens around the chamber, which now showed images from across the galaxy. Worlds that had joined the cooperative were thriving. New cities rose from barren landscapes. Scientific breakthroughs happened daily as different species shared their knowledge freely. Art, music, and literature flourished as beings were encouraged to express their creativity. Look at what we have achieved together, Chen continued. Humans, ethereals, crystallines, void wanderers, water singers, and hundreds of other species working as equals. We have solved problems that plagued the galaxy for millennia. We have technologies that seemed impossible just 3 years ago. We have created something beautiful. Elder Vorthak stepped forward, his ancient face showing a mixture of sadness and wonder. You were right about us, he admitted. We ruled through fear because we were afraid ourselves. Afraid of change, afraid of losing control. Afraid of admitting that our way might not be the best way. Fear is natural, Captain Chen replied kindly, but it does not have to control us. In the cooperative, we face our fears together and help each other overcome them. There is room for everyone in our future, even former council leaders who are willing to learn new ways of thinking. One by one, the remaining council members made their choices. Some, like Elder Vorthak, chose to join the cooperative and help build the new galaxy. Others, like Ambassador Zephys, chose to retreat to isolated worlds where they could maintain their old ways of thinking without affecting others. The synthetics faced a different kind of choice. Captain Chen offered them something unprecedented, the chance to evolve beyond their original programming. Working with cooperative technicians, many synthetics learned to develop creativity and emotional responses. They became true artificial intelligences instead of mere programmed machines. We were designed to replace humans, said Synthetic Unit 7749, now calling itself Hope. Instead, we learned from humans. We discovered that perfect logic without emotion is not truly intelligent. We needed chaos and creativity to become complete beings. 5 years after their exile, humans stood not as rulers of the galaxy, but as partners in its transformation. They had kept their promise to show what cooperation could achieve. The rigid hierarchy of the council had been replaced by a fluid network of equals, each contributing their unique strengths to the common good. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, now the Cooperative's Director of Xenological Studies, stood in his laboratory on New Geneva and marveled at what they had built. Scientists from dozens of species worked together, their different ways of thinking creating breakthroughs that none could have achieved alone. They called us Chaos, he said to his assistant, a young crystalline researcher whose thoughts moved at light speed. But chaos is just order that hasn't found its pattern yet. We helped the galaxy find its true pattern: unity in diversity, strength in cooperation, and hope in the unlimited potential of beings working together. The galaxy was indeed transformed. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had once been enemies. Scientific knowledge was shared openly instead of hoarded secretly. Art and culture flourished as beings were encouraged to express their unique perspectives. Most importantly, every being in the galaxy knew that they had a choice in their destiny. The Council had believed they could replace humans and eliminate the chaos that came with emotion, creativity, and independent thinking. Instead, they had learned that these human traits were not flaws to be corrected, but gifts to be celebrated and shared. In trying to remove humanity from the galaxy, the Council had instead made the entire galaxy more human, more creative, more compassionate, more willing to embrace the beautiful uncertainty that came with true freedom. The exile had ended not with humanity's return to their old place in the galaxy, but with the galaxy's evolution into something far greater than anyone had imagined possible. And it had all begun with the simple human belief that differences should be celebrated, not eliminated, and that cooperation was always stronger than control. The Galactic Council had indeed been broken, but in the best possible way. From its ruins had risen something beautiful, a galaxy where every being could reach their full potential, and where the future belonged to everyone willing to work together to create it.